Hello, and today I'm going to talk about my first impressions for the anime Inuyashiki. Inuyashiki is about a guy who has no friends, who is feeling the weight of the world collapse on his shoulders, suffering from a deep depression, when all of a sudden he gets granted superpowers and decides to use them to save the world. Now, this doesn't sound much different from anything you've seen before, with the exception that he's a 58-year-old man who looks like he's 80. When being introduced to our protagonist, who shares the same name as the show, I felt like I didn't really know what to expect given his demographic being so drastically different from most other anime protagonists that you see. And I feel like we got an interesting mixture of what you would normally see in a protagonist and what you wouldn't. I was initially surprised to see that he actually had a family. I'm so used to anime protagonists being these loner types who don't really know anyone that I didn't expect him to have a wife and 2 kids. But they ended up getting around that by basically making them hate him. Like, it's not like they're divorced or anything, just they treat him like absolute trash. And probably the biggest similarity that you see with your normal protagonist is that they spend a very large portion of the first episode getting you to relate to him. You spend like the entire first half just basically see him being put down and down over and over again. You see his wife complaining at him, you see his kids completely ignore him, and then to top off the day, he ends up being diagnosed with terminal cancer. And whenever he tries to tell his family about it, they basically ignore him before he can ever get it out. And he ends up coming to the conclusion that they probably wouldn't even care. And the first episode does a really good job of getting you into his head and getting you to really sympathize with his character. Then all of a sudden, in what seemed like the most comedic moment in the first 5 episodes, all of a sudden he gets hit by a flying saucer. And you just see a black screen with the voices of aliens in the background freaking out about the hit and run. And being like, all we have is a weapons unit. Okay, go ahead and fix the people that we killed with these weapon units. And it just felt really out of left field, but I understand why they did it, because there wasn't really a way for them to do that in a quick time span without it just being really weird. So they kind of just hit and ran, similar to the aliens. And the remainder of the first episode is spent having Inuyashiki, or Robo-Grandpa as I called him after this point, learning the ropes of how his abilities work, and largely just freaking out about them. After this, you get introduced to Hiro, who is basically the darkness to Robo-Grandpa's light. And basically every bit of how much you're supposed to love Inuyashiki, you are supposed to hate Hiro. And it's just that Inuyashiki ends up finding meaning in saving people's lives, while Hiro ends up finding meaning in killing people. And in a way, I really like the contrast where they both recognize themselves as human because they could do these things. One because they could save people, and one because they could hurt people. But the way that they go about showing Hiro's systematic murder of just a random family because he could was one of the coldest things that I've ever seen in anime. Like, honestly, that scene was just really hard to watch. But the scariest part about it is that it felt like it was actually something a person could do. And just the horror of that alone really carries the scene, and made it not feel nearly as forced as it could have if it was executed differently. Just how cold his expressions are, and just how little he genuinely cares as he's murdering a random family just because he feels like it. And with that, you're very quickly given the dynamic of who's good and who's evil and who you're rooting for in this series. And given that they're the only 2 people, it seems, who were killed by this spaceship and rebuilt as robots, it's hard to see there being any other truly important antagonists or even protagonists in this series. Besides the 4th episode, you end up getting a one-shot episode with the Yakuza, where you see Robo-Grandpa beating up the Yakuza, and just, it looks really awesome. The CGI in this series actually is much better than pretty much any other CGI I've seen before. Like, usually it feels uncanny, and it does still feel a bit uncanny here, but it works to the show's benefit given the whole robotic aspects of the main characters. And the way he just dispatches of all of the Yakuza in mere seconds was just jaw-dropping after they had finally pushed him to his limit. But like, if that's what he could do to the Yakuza, then I can't even think of anyone who could really stand in his way besides Hiro. So the show will probably progress a lot more with them and have less one-shot stuff in the future. Now, for anyone who doesn't know, this series was written by the same person who did Gantz. I've never read Gantz, but for anyone who has, you probably know just how dark this series can get. Now, from all that I've heard about Gantz, I'm actually surprised that the show isn't as dark as it could be. Like, those Hiro's systematic murder of that family, and all of the stuff that happens with the Yakuza. But at the end of the day, the series has had a lot more hope than it has despair. And I feel like that's going to change moving forward, but we definitely aren't there yet. So I'm kind of scared at where the series could go, but I'm really happy with what it's done so far, and just how it's presented itself, with one of the most rootable protagonists of the season being this 58-year-old businessman. I think he's a businessman. He doesn't really go to work anymore, now that he just spends his days saving lives, but he's easily one of the most rootable protagonists of the season. And just, it's so easy to care for him because of how much he cares for everyone else. He's not saving people half-heartedly. He genuinely cares about what he's doing, and it shows you that every second that he's saving people. Probably my only thing that's concerning me so far is that his family hasn't really shown back up since the first episode. And while I don't think they're gone, I kind of want to see more of that dynamic. Like, he's no longer as tired and all that as we see in the first episode because he is a robot now, so he doesn't get tired. So, like, I feel like he has more energy to actually do stuff to help his family, and that there's potential for his family to not hate him. But I feel like they might be left off until Hiro gets mad at him and tries to take revenge on him. And they're going to be used as cannon fodder, maybe? And I'm hoping that's not the case. But we'll see. I'm really looking forward to the series. It's easily one of the best shows of the season. I think the only show that's competing against it for the top spot of the season would be Magus's Bride. And it could really end up being either by the way the two series are going. But I'm loving this series, and I'm hoping it continues to be great. I have little doubt it will be. But I hope you're enjoying it too. And I hope you have a good day. Peace.